let's just pick up where we were um,
Yeah.
with what you were sharing.
So, so I guess I was just about to tell you about my office hours interview that I did live, which was awesome and way outside my comfort level. And I got there because my career coach who helped me navigate when I got laid off from my last position, navigate sort of my figuring out what I really wanted to do with my life. And it really helped me sort of be kind to myself through the burnout. And it was an unhappy time.
Yeah.
So she really she helped a lot and we've stayed in touch. And yeah, so she is not an ADHD coach, but she's a career coach. And she's like, well, would you like to come and talk about ADHD in the workplace? I was like, sure, that sounds great. I would love to. I have so much to say about that. Um, and yeah, so I did. And it was awesome because she got the best turnout that she's ever had in her office hours because the subject was so important to people and there's so little information out there
Yeah.
that's, you know, really straightforward, good information. So,
Yeah. And from someone who has the direct personal experience, live
right.
sharing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So was that part of the inspiration for where you are now with your, I guess, ADHD practice, coaching practice?
Um, yes, my ADHD is 100% my inspiration for where I am now. Um, yeah, so now I'm an ADHD coach and I've been going to school for the past year for it and I'm really excited about doing this and it's because I was diagnosed in 1988. Like no women were diagnosed in 1988. So like I was lucky enough to get diagnosed, but we were also all of us were ignoring what ADHD actually how it affects us.
Right.
And so therefore I did too for the next 34 years until I was 36 and had a kid and like life turned upside down and I was like, I can't manage this. I finally
Mhm.
got treated in the form of medication, but that's all. It was just like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll just take a pill and I'm fixed, right? So did
Huh.
that for a long time. And then about 3 years ago now, I got laid off from my job of I went through a ton of careers and got laid off from my most recent job of director of finance and administration for a nonprofit and it was devastating. And I also understood that it was my ADHD. A lot of what was going on for me was related to my ADHD. I was so tired, I was so burnt out, I was overwhelmed. I was beating myself to bits. And so my first degree was in outdoor education for
Mm.
social change, and it was about empowering teenage girls.
Yeah.
I did not follow through with that for many reasons, but mainly because they ate me alive. But empowerment has always been such a huge part of my life, and I realized how important empowerment is for people with ADHD because we're just all we hear about is how we fail, how we're
Exactly.
lazy, how we're obstructive, or how we're too much or interrupt too much or whatever. We always hear we're just wrong, and so but we have amazing brains, and so going back to my initial desire for empowerment, coaching is embodies that, right? So
Yes.
I get to work with women now who don't feel empowered in there and don't love their brains so much often, to find ways to love their brains, learn what their brains do and their strengths and their passions and move forward with that.
Yeah. Oh, I loved hearing that. And I imagine you can remember how you felt in some of those similar situations as you're talking with your clients.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just I just, my clients are such a gift to me too, right? Because I get to not only work with them to find their power, but through that, I also find more of mine. And it's just so, it's such an amazing and rewarding place to be.
Yay. How
Yeah.
wonderful. Um, to get a little specific about some of your jobs, I'm curious if you can expand on how, yeah, I guess how ADHD was affecting your, I don't know, day-to-day experience.
Right. So that's a long story. ADHD is one of the things that just totally boggles my mind is that ADHD affects like 5 to 10% of us, right? Across the board, across the world, cross cultural boundaries. It's just there. And it affects so much. So its tendrils sort of reach into every aspect of our lives. Um, so therefore ADHD affected my career paths in every way. So, I mean, I went to 5 colleges, did three or four different majors before I finally had to create my own because I can never follow anybody else's path. And then finally learned that, right? And then that career was like, oh, I can't do this because this, I love it, but I can't. And so then I went on to be an admin assistant for a long time. Legal secretary was fun and exciting work. I love supporting people. I love um, being able to sort of be there for people, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, and if you wanted to put my ego into it, I love being everything to people. So like executive assistants and legal assistants, where like I'm just like I have 8 arms and I can do everything for
Yeah.
everybody. It's great. And so I did that for a long time, but then I got burnt out super quick because I was being everything for everybody.
Yeah. I
And
get
so
it.
then I started my own landscaping business because I love the outside, and
Oh,
so I did that for 10 years, but my ADHD there was I couldn't take care of the back end of things. I couldn't, once things got boring, I couldn't do
yeah.
it anymore. I couldn't do the rigmarole of like all this administrative stuff that I was awesome at in my past job.
Yeah.
I couldn't do
Yeah.
it for
For someone
myself.
else or
Right,
for the two.
right. Yeah, I couldn't do it for me. And so then I started working for nonprofits. I was like, oh, great, I can still change the world. I can use my administrative job skills. I can still do lots of things for lots of people.
Yeah.
And so sort of grew into being a director of finance administration for several different organizations over time. And again, I was doing everything for everybody. I was doing and not really for myself, right? So um but I was just like always had to say yes to everything, always had to prove myself, always had to be everybody's go-to. And and that is great to a point, but you get burnt out, right? You
Yeah.
get, I mean, I was exhausted, and there was a, I would take on too much and I would drop balls and I would beat myself up about it. I would get into trouble, um and it was terrible.
Yeah.
And so I got laid off. Actually, it was painful at the time, but thank goodness. Um because I don't know if I would have changed it. I didn't know what I was doing to myself then,
Mhm.
until afterwards. And while I was exploring sort of healing from getting laid off and getting having that just tremendous blow to my ego,
Right.
um I was just really was like got sort of drawn into, oh, I found an ADHD coach. I did some ADHD coaching with Tracy Atsuka, who's
Oh, yeah. I know
just
her program
wrote
too.
a book, ADHD for smart ass women, right?
Yeah.
She's fabulous, and I did her group coaching course, which was ADHD A-OK, I think, when I did one of the earlier iterations of that. Um, and really learned a lot about my ADHD, and that I wasn't totally broken, and that I could use, I always had a good, positive attitude about my brain, and I loved my strengths, and
Yeah.
but I didn't ever see like how I was sort of using often my strengths to just, I don't know, just to overwhelm and sort of destroy myself. So
Mhm.
it was, that's a dramatic way to say it, but I was really there. I mean, I was working 70 hours a week. It was
Mhm.
just awful.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I know those
and
hours.
I and I couldn't make everybody happy. I couldn't do it all. So learning how my brain worked and learning how to sort of work with my strengths a little bit better and more proactively and more um what is it, more I want to say one at a time. Like I was like learning how to just sort of like chill a little bit and
Yeah.
do a smaller amount of stuff
Yeah.
better was
Yeah,
really
that feels so good.
yeah, yeah.
And
And
I
I
mean,
also found out how to do it with and still make the amazing differences for other people, which has always been really important to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about some examples of things because I know for my own brain, like what are some of the things that I guess you get to do now, or what are some of like the strengths that you
Mm.
enjoy getting to use in your
Yeah.
past jobs or more in your current work?
Yeah. So if there's a so I'm super creative. I always see outside the box. Like I almost can't see inside the
Is
box.
there a box?
Yeah, right. I don't understand why there's this constraint and so I can't see the constraint. I am really open and trusting with people, which can also be a sometimes too much.
Yeah.
So I can be almost sort of naive in my relationships sometimes, but I can also be like just an open and really trusting person. I
Yeah.
always see the best in people,
Mhm.
which I love. Um, I see the world with a wide angle view and sort of so I see a lot of connections where
Mhm.
people don't see them. Um, let's see. Okay, I can be super spontaneous and think of which sort of translates sometimes into fun and
Yeah.
sometimes into impulsive behaviors
Relate to
are not
that.
as healthy. But I am super curious and have a really deep love of learning. So
Mhm.
being a coach is what a gift that I get to be curious about other
Yeah.
people and be sort of in the room as they explore
Mhm.
themselves, and it's just really wonderful. And sadly, those things are all amazing. I always see tons of different perspectives. Like, so I never ever see shades, black and white. It's like shades of gray, everything. I can see everything from both sides. I love that. A lot of people really hate that about me. That's just, which is fine, but it's one of my favorite characteristics, actually. Um, and so I think all of those things I get to use regularly as a coach and not necessarily abuse like I was doing in other places where
Yeah.
I'm more self-aware, more understanding of myself. Like had like 5 days where I was I'm dealing with a teenager who's having some challenges. I have a mother who's also having some challenges. So I'm sort of part of that sandwich generation. I've had my mother 3,000 miles away, so I'm trying to manage things like all over the place, and I was feeling really dysregulated and
Mhm.
shutting down. And I like yesterday I finally like took a breath and was like, wait a minute, I could do something about this. I don't
Mhm.
need to sit in this overwhelm. I don't need to be
Yeah.
dysregulated. I could. So I went out and gardened for an hour, and it was just such a literal breath of fresh air.
I
It was
love
just,
that.
it was so amazing to allow myself like, wait a minute, you need something and it's okay. So go do it, and then things will be easier. And
Yeah.
they were. And I was way more productive for the rest of the day, even though I was exhausted because I worked my butt off
I
outside. But
love that.
um,
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah, just that example, that self-awareness, that ability to like feel yourself and your needs and take an action that
yeah,
supports it. Um,
yeah.
I guess it kind of brings me to the last question, which you've kind of already been sharing on. I guess a like perspective or advice you feel would be helpful for someone who's like earlier, maybe what you might tell yourself back in those
Yeah.
days.
My favorite and biggest piece of advice is get to know your brain. Like learn about ADHD. We beat ourselves up about all of this stuff because we have this brain-based difference
Hmm.
that nobody can do anything about except for learn about it.
Yeah.
We can't make ourselves better. We're not broken, we're just different.
Hmm.
Um, and it's permanent. Right? This doesn't go away. So learn about it and try and find ways to accept yourself and your brain. It's
Mhm.
just I feel like so there's millions of tips and tricks out there, like how brain hacks and like how to make yourself be more productive in a neurotypical
Oh
world
yeah.
and try to be try as best you can to accept your brain the way it is and fit your world to your brain instead of your brain to the
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, that just inspires me. I just thank you so much, Sue.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
really
it was,
resonates.
thank you. I love our brains and it's just so it makes me so sad to see people struggling so much with their brains and really beating themselves up about it. So
Yeah, that was part of my inspiration. Just realizing like there's so many amazing things about this. And when you can see and work with it, gosh, I mean, it feels so much better. And I mean, that's probably the main thing. It just feels so much better. And then all the other stuff, that
hmm
you want to happen
right.
happens too and
Yeah.
more easily. Both.
Yeah, for sure. Once we learn how to work with our
Yeah.
brains and how to sort of mold our environments to the way that we need them to
Yes.
be,
That's how I
it
love to think
opens
of
up
it. Just like, how do I
whole
make an
worlds.
environment that feels good for me to be in, makes it easy to do the things that I want to do? Can I put some plants? Can I put some purple? Right? Can I have my little like reminders? I think I like showed you this last time.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is
Oh,
my
I
own.
love it. Pause is such a big one. Like
Yeah.
just think about it for a second or
Yeah.
just breathe. Wow. Those are great. Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. I've made some of
Yeah.
these with my clients too. I mean, it was something that I just like had on my desk and then we did a little brainstorm for them. It's like, what are those
hmm
things that like help you, recenter? Because as you said with that gardening example, like
hmm
it's like if there's the self-awareness, the self-compassion, the pause to say, you know, continuing this is not going to get me where I think I want to go. Let me like step outside, have a little movement, do the thing that brings me a little energy. And then
hmm
I still forget this, but then once
Yeah.
I'm doing that, the ideas come back, the energy, the like productivity
Yeah.
after. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I even named my business Walk with Christina, because I was like, that's gonna like make me walk. Like I need to walk every day. I know it's a good thing for me to do. I need some accountability to do it. And every time
hmm
I just go out and like smell the flowers, look
Right.
around, get physically engaged in my surroundings,
Yeah.
everything's
There's
so much
neuroscience,
easier.
like, yeah, there's tons of neuroscience around that too, which is amazing. It's like,
Mhm.
it's so, we get into this rumination and our emotions get really dysregulated and we can't get out of that cycle. And moving our bodies actually takes us out of our brains into our bodies and allows our brains to sort of settle down, stop
Yeah.
vibrating so much.
Yeah. And it's nice as you make that connection. Like there is the neuroscience. It's also, I hear you speaking from your experience, like your embodiment
Yeah.
of like, you're like, I
hmm
know that, not just intellectually, but like and I also
hmm
am like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
read that and then it resonates because I've like had that
Yes.
experience, even if I,
hmm
spiral and forget temporarily.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it took me 5 days to figure it out. Like, oh, I could stop this. Wait, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm, and I think that's one of the things that is okay about us and our brains. We had crappy working memory, right? It's like we're not always going to remember all the best. I love that you have a desk that a prompt right there
I
to
know.
tell you. It says we're not always going to remember what's going to help right now, and sometimes we're not even going to notice that we need help. Like it
Yeah.
took me like 2 or 3 days to notice that I was dysregulated.
Yeah.
I was just sort of grumpy and annoyed, and then I was like,
Yeah.
it took me a few days to just be like, oh, that's because I'm dysregulated. That's because all this stuff has been going on, and I need a break. And then it took me a few more days to figure out what that break was. So, yeah,
Yeah, I love that you share that.
yeah,
So relatable to like,
yeah,
yeah, what are the things that are gonna prompt us to, have that self-awareness? This is a
yeah.
new one. And I just noticed recently that it didn't have something I had on my old one,
Uh-huh.
which was eat something.
Oh, yes.
And so I
Uh-huh.
realized that I like hadn't been, I guess, like eating as regularly. And I was like, wait, why am I like off track on this? Why am I so irritable and unfocused? And it's like, Oh, I don't have a reminder anymore, so I was forgetting
Uh-huh.
to, take that
Yeah.
little step.
Yeah, no, it was really, really great. And I love what you're doing, like really sharing people's experiences with ADHD.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's important. We often feel like we're just in our own little worlds and
Yeah.
nobody else is experiencing this. And yeah, actually 5 to 10% of us are experiencing this. So
Yeah. It's nice to hear the number. There are people
yeah.
who need this, know this, and it makes a difference when you meet someone who just like resonates, activates, reminds
Mm,
you
yeah.
who you are and that you're amazing as you are and you have the power
Hmm.
to like create a life that works for you.